Hey, my name's Ryan, and welcome to Training in the Yard, Episode 1. Here we go.
Let's get started with a little bit of a warm-up, shall we?
I know what you're thinking, Rydog. You said we're training in the yard, but this is your driveway. Listen, let's not be too literal, shall we? Okay? The premise is to be outside in nature, okay? You get like 5 minutes on the rower and just get some blood circulating, try to raise the core body temperature. Man, that's always step number one for a good workout. I decided to do 3 minutes, not because I'm not in shape. I can do 5 or 10 easy, but it's actually kind of warm, even though it's December and getting colder. I've got a lot of layers on, so I feel pretty good. So let's move on to the next stage of the warm-up. I know that I am warmed up and really ready to start lifting once I start sweating a little bit, and I can feel that coming on. But one of the ways I like to expedite that process is by jumping. For some reason, whenever I'm done jumping, definitely start to sweat. And at that point, I feel like I'm ready to go. And I've also kind of like tested out the springs a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Felt the power for the day, if you will. Today, I'm just gonna do some extensive jumps, meaning they're gonna be less intense in nature. I'm gonna try to pump out some more volume with them. Typically on Mondays, I'll do some extensive jumps like this and save the more intensive things for later in the week. First thing we're gonna do is just some deep tier plyos, and I'll show you those and go over why I'm doing them like that. So here you can see me doing these extensive deep tier plyos that I'm talking about, and specifically I'm jumping forward for 3 jumps and then jumping backwards for 1. Because I'm limiting the range of motion through which I can produce force, they're going to be inherently less intense and more extensive by nature. But I also like using these as sort of a teaching tool for learning how to be elastic and accepting of these forces in deeper ranges of motion. And so I view it as a specific way to get ready for Olympic lifting and things like squatting without having to get into a loaded barbell. Next, I'm getting into what I call extensive full jumps. And again, I wouldn't say that these jumps are great at improving your ability to store and release elastic energy because they're not very intense, and I'm purposefully making them that way just to help extend the warm-up. As Dan Clealer says in his book Force, when referring to the storage and reuse of elastic energy, energy stored in this way dissipates very quickly, and so this type of absorption is only seen in activities that have short ground contact times. So I just view jumps like these as a way to build jumping volume and are especially good as an introduction into plyometrics, but also learning what it feels like to be more elastic in these deeper positions. All right, the next portion of the session is going to be dedicated to some mobility work. And let me be clear, I don't mean mobility as in only chasing flexibility or the greatest range of motion through which my joints can move. Now, flexibility absolutely is a part of mobility, but I would more generally define mobility as my capacity for movement. And so in a mobility-specific portion of a training session where I'm aiming to increase my mobility, I'm not only seeking greater ranges of motion, but coupling those ranges of motion with some of the forces that I'll be experiencing within that session. That's why I'm including sprinting in this, even though it's very light sprinting, in order to help get me ready for the next portion of the session. Okay, so the first really intense thing that we're going to get into today, and really intense in quotations, is sled sprints. I'm going to do 5 sets of 1, and I'm going to go to maybe about 90% intensity on the last one, just kind of build up, and I'll give myself about a minute of a rest in between. Now there's 2 reasons why I'm doing sled sprints today. Number 1 is just kind of like a general rule of thumb, or a heuristic, if you will. Ooh, there's your 50-cent word of the day. Is that sled sprints are good for working specifically on acceleration. Kinematically, they're going to put you in positions that favor acceleration with that like forward lean, right?
But secondarily, I'm using them specifically because I'm not as good about incorporating sprint work into my training as I'd like to be. And this is a good sort of introductory sprint for me because velocity will inherently be slower because I'm pulling weight behind me. And I've always had trouble with just like exposing myself to higher velocities in the past without building up to that. So that's the rationale. Let's get to it. This sled is from Rep Fitness. I think it wasn't too expensive. Would be a really good piece for any home gym. Definitely 10 out of 10 recommend. I'm about to make you eat my frickin' dust, huh? I remember reading in the mechanics of sprinting and hurdling something specifically about how to be the most effective in taking off, how to be the fastest, and I'm pretty sure the author mentioned how you don't necessarily want to jump out from the beginning, especially in something like a sled sprint. Rather, you just want to focus on putting your feet into the ground, getting some force into the ground, and getting moving. I'll check on that and give you a more elaborate discussion after I reread that. But that's something that I'm trying to picture right now.
Okay, so I looked back at the mechanics of sprinting and hurdling and found the passage that I was attempting to reference in my discussion. And I'm just going to read straight from the book on page 121, and the context here is in reference to the start. Thus, poor results can occur if the athlete produces air times that are either too short or too long. If the time is too short, the athlete does not have sufficient time to properly recover the body segments to the most efficient mechanical position. If the time is too long, then the athlete wastes time in the air that should be spent on the ground, driving the body down the track. It must be remembered that, whenever a sprinter is in the air, the strongest athlete is no more effective than the weakest athlete since there is nothing to push on. This is why, during the start, the best performers are on the ground almost 80% of the time. It is apparent from the ground and airtime results that the key to the start lies in minimizing ground contact by generating large amounts of ground force, while minimizing the airtime by directing the action horizontally down the track as much as possible. The author then makes a clear distinction between the jump start and the shuffle start being what I was alluding to at the beginning of this discussion, in which the sprinter is trying to turn over his legs as quickly as possible by making the steps as short as possible. And the rationale behind this is shorter air times, more effective push times, and better front side mechanics.
Set myself up a little table here. I'm a resourceful guy, come on. Which way does this freaking thing go? I remember back in my day when tables were made out of wood by professionals, you know? What is this crap? Ah, there we go. Definitely good and warm, ready to go now. And next on the menu for the day are some no feet hang power snatches. No feet, meaning I'm not going to bring my feet up off of the ground and have them reconnect with the ground. Hang, meaning I'm going into the hang position for each rep. And power snatch, meaning I'm doing a snatch where I'm not going to allow my hips to get below my knees. So, a lot of constraints on this exercise, but it's a fun one, and it's a fun one to do like really quickly and do like repeat reps and not really spend that much time in between them. It won't be an exercise I can use a lot of weight on, but it will be one where I can do some excuse me, where I can get into some flow and just try to move the barbell in a really fluid and sort of dynamic way. So let's get started. I'm also feeling pretty warm, so I think it's time to take some layers off. Just kind of move around a little bit. Oh. I think I'm going to need some kind of platform.
Got an idea?
Good enough? How's my hair look? Sometimes when I take a beanie off, I just get crazy hat hair. This would be so embarrassing if I was like that for the rest of the video. I think part of this is just not seeking perfection with any of it and just kind of like taking what the elements give me. This isn't ideal by any means, lifting on a piece of plywood, but we can make it work. Start adding some weight. Hey Jimbo. Yeah, come on. Yeah, but you're fine. Doing all right?
No, I just...
That was my father-in-law, just coming to pick something up from the house. Just salt of the earth kind of guy. They don't make them any better than that. This will be my last warm-up set here, and I think we'll start the first working set at 185. All right, now that I'm done with all my warm-up sets and getting ready to really kind of lock in for the session, there's something I want to do for every episode of this little mini series, and that is a strength book review. And I use the term review loosely because this is not going to be an all-encompassing review. In fact, it's only going to be like 30 seconds or so, so it would be, you know, disingenuous to say that I could review really good books within that time frame. But anyways, I guess the point is to just introduce you to some books that I've read in the past that really have helped me on my training journey. The first one that I want to start with is Block Periodization, Fundamental Concepts in Training Design by Vladimir Issurin. Now, the general concept of this book is to introduce you to the style of block periodization, which is in essence chasing a specific physical quality and potentially even isolating that physical quality within a block of training, and a block of training being anywhere from like 4 to 8 weeks typically, and that specific quality being what is often called biomotor attributes, physical characteristics, things like strength, power, speed, agility, cardiovascular conditioning, etc. I read this book when I was getting my master's somewhere around the year of 2020, I believe. And it was really interesting just reading about a style of periodization in particular, right? Like this whole book is about block periodization. And the author, Vladimir Issurin, writes in a way that I think is not only very coherent, but digestible for really anyone. You don't need to have an extensive training background in order to understand what he's talking about. And just to give you a quick overview of some of the things that he talks about in terms of chapters. Chapter 1 is Basic Terms and Principles of Sports Training. Chapter 3 is Trainability. Chapter 4 is Designing Training Programs. And there is a bunch of sub kind of categories within each chapter that are getting into some more specific concepts. Some of the key things that I remember reading, like really sticking out to me, were his idea of training residuals and how long a specific characteristic may last, or kind of may stay within some sort of a baseline before it starts detraining and you need to train it again. That's a really useful concept. And then there's also a part where he talks about the key exercise, and I think that this is sort of an undertone in the book, and it's not something that he places a lot of emphasis on, but I just remember that term, that concept of key exercise really sticking out to me, because whatever exercise you put at the front of your session, for me, you know, outside of all the warming up and sprinting, it would be this exercise right here that I'm doing, is where you are placing your emphasis for the session, because anything you do after that you're going to be fatigued for. And although I could do some really good squats or deadlifts, which I'm going to do after this, they wouldn't be as fresh as if I did them first off. I think that you have to apply this to the right population, and this population would be strength sports, Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, and some track and field, where you're not tracing every single quality at once, and you can really get a lot more specific with the qualities that you're chasing at a particular time. And I think that that's where something like block periodization starts to be really, really useful. So like if I have a few powerlifters on my roster right now where I sort of filter their training through a more block periodization style where, okay, right now we're going to focus on hypertrophy and then strength. Although we're still training both qualities at the same time, those things are sort of inseparable. But the way that you can put each into your program and incorporate each of them lends itself to just some more interesting programs and just gives you a little bit more direction. There's a hawk in that bush behind me. It'd be crazy to think that you can't read this book and not obtain a wealth of knowledge that is specific to applying block periodization in general or just training in general, right? Like I was talking about the key exercise thing, but I feel like I'm rambling now. There is my Training in the Yard book review. All right, let's put 185 on. And the prescription for these today is 2 waves. And within each wave, there are 3 sets. So we're gonna go 3-2-1, 3-2-1 in terms of repetitions. And I wanna focus on speed more than anything today, just because I'm not really even gonna be able to move a lot of weight in this exercise like this anyway, so don't want to chase a crazy amount of weight, rather focus on really good form, moving the bar as fast as possible. I'll try to make the second wave a hair heavier than the first, but I won't let chasing weight get in the way of those standards. Set number 1, let's have some fun. Felt okay. I think I'm like angled backwards a little bit. And just gotta keep that in mind. Let's go up to 205 for a second set. Pro tip is to leave your plates looking like this, kind of like outside and not, pushed in as far as you can. Gives you an added instability, which is something you really want when trying to lift weights. Honey, do you have any tips for me on this next set?
My pajamas.
Okay. Let's go up to 225. One thing I know that I can do better, which is going to help me with this exercise, is trying to catch it lower. Still catching it really, really high. And I know when I get to that second wave and it gets a little heavier, that's going to come really in handy. So I'm going to focus on that right now. When I'm done extending, I'm going to try to get as low as I can while it's still being a power clean. Well, as low as I need to, really. So I'm still going to pull as hard as I can. I don't know. It's weird. Weightlifting is hard and fun. I could be really crazy, or it's probably that I'm just being lazy, that I might try 225 for my second set of 3. You only live once, right? Come on. I think I've done that in every video ever, where I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna focus on speed and technique, and then I just want to lift weight. Sorry, sue me. This is actually feeling a lot better than I thought it would. Let's get a 245. Could be a bit more of a jump than I bargained for here, because at some point with snatching, the weight just starts to feel heavier than it should. But you know, as Ronnie Coleman says, hey, wait! All right, ain't nothing to it but to do it. Man, I'm just full of zingers today, aren't I? Let me think of another one before I get into this lift. Oh, now I can't think of one. The pressure's on. Better out than in, as they always say. No, that doesn't work there. No! And there it was. A little heavier than I bargained for. Just one rep. I think I can get 255. Let's give it a shot. Did you notice the new camera angle too? Listen, I'm trying to pay attention to the cinematography of these episodes. And truly, where I gain my inspiration from is the one and only Peter Jackson. There will never be cinema like that again.
I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. Come on!
Yes. Felt my feet come up a hair, but I think I'll still consider that a no foot clean or whatever, snatch. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm lightheaded. All right, let's keep this train rolling. All right, next on the menu is snatch grip deadlifts. Love this exercise because it increases the range of motion, number one, and then number two, also forces you to get into really good extension with your upper back, right? If you ever want to snatch a lot of weight or just get better at snatching, flattening out that upper back and keeping it flat even during a really heavy snatch is really crucial. And this is one way to build that strength in your thoracic spine. Here's the prescription. I'm going to do 6 reps, 1 rep every 90 seconds. Not a whole lot to talk about, and I'm not going to have a whole lot of time to talk about anything. So I'm just going to kind of let the camera roll and we'll do what we got to do. Unfortunately, I wasn't recording for reps 2 and 3. I don't know what happened. You're just going to have to trust that I did them. And I'm not going to redo them, number one, because I'm tired. And number two, it is actually Christmas Eve morning, and I got somewhere to be. This feels tremendously heavy. Number one, because I'm like doing a deficit, because the plates are sinking into the ground. And number two, I feel like I sink into the ground when I go to push, because this ground is so soft. At least that's what I'm telling myself, so I don't feel weak. You got a long way to go in these snatch grip deadlifts in terms of how much more you're pulling, so just keep pulling. Keep pulling until you can. All right, last thing on the menu for today are Cossack squats, I think is how you pronounce them. Close enough if not. Good squat variation, sort of like a lunge almost. You're not gonna use a ton of weight, or you don't have to at least. And my aim with this is to just try to chase as much range of motion as I can. I'm gonna do 2 sets here. I'm only gonna show you one. Kind of on a time crunch right now, so let's get this done. And that concludes episode 1 of Training in the Yard, where all I'm trying to do is have some fun and show that it doesn't take a whole lot to train your fitness in any degree that you really want to. You won't see this on Christmas Eve, but I hope you had a great Christmas Eve, or I hope you had a great time just celebrating friends and family. If you don't celebrate Christmas and the holiday season, that's great too. I'll see you in the next one, and as always, training is fun. Phew.